Thank you very much, Charlotte, Ms. Lobe. On that very note, let me congratulate Switzerland. I believe they're the winner in pronouncing Maxeke. I was very impressed. But let me begin by recognizing His Excellency Ambassador Le Chevalier, Charge Ortega of Mexico, as well as our colleague from Switzerland who joined us this morning. I'm really pleased that our international friends are joining us in this important collaboration that South Africa is launching. I'm also very grateful at the energy with which France and Mexico have taken on the objective of advancing the generation equality agenda of women worldwide. And in that regard, I greet UN Women, Madame Getugu, for her presence and always her partnership with international relations and cooperation in South Africa, and the work that UN Women does for women across the globe. We also congratulate in the same breath Madame Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. She has now completed her term as Executive Director of UN Women, and I think there is no woman or man who would quibble with the reality that she put the gender agenda on the global map. And we as South Africans are proud of the role she has played, and we congratulate her for her leadership. Let me also thank Ms. Lobe for the work that she puts with great energy and enthusiasm into the gender focal programs of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. I greet each and every one of you who are joining us this morning. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to be the one who launches an historic initiative which we would like and intend to play a leading role in giving practical effect to. Everyone has referred to it. This is the Charlotte Maxeke African Women's Economic Justice and Rights Initiative. This is Women's Month, and it's great to launch this initiative in South Africa against the backdrop of celebrating 150 years since the birth of this wonderful patriot and woman of South Africa, Charlotte Maxeke. Our government has declared 2021 the year of Charlotte Maxeke. We are honored today that we are joined by members of the Manya, Makanya, and Maxeke family and representatives of the Charlotte Maxeke Institute. August is, of course, the month in which we enjoy a Women's Day, where we celebrate women, the courage, the steadfastness, the boldness of women of 1956 and of all eras, when women stood up to fight for the rights not just of women, but of the entire humanity, particularly for the oppressed people of South Africa. The occasion that significantly we highlight is that of the 1956 march on the Union buildings by a non-racial, multi-class gathering of women determined to put at the forefront their objection to the ongoing oppression of women in South Africa and the imposition of the offense of carrying a pass on women in our country. So we celebrate that courage, the ability to organize, the ability to be innovative and leading in ideology by putting together essentially a non-racial, multi-class form of resistance. This is most unusual in most revolutions, that you would have such a modern approach to struggle. But it was women in South Africa at that time who led in this way, and we are proud to commemorate that history. We also know, of course, that Charlotte Maxeke was an early leader in this regard, having led a march in 1913 in Bloemfontein against the introduction of passes. So we have this history of women who are not afraid to stand up, who are not afraid to speak out, who are not afraid to take on a cause. It is for this reason and for these characteristics that we celebrate Women's Month in 2021 under the theme, the year of Charlotte Maxeke, realizing women's equality. This theme underscores our ongoing struggle for the attainment and protection of women's rights during a time when our country is battling a number of issues that actually detract from the agenda of equality that we are pursuing. Gender-based violence, a blight on our society, has been referred to. The terrible impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been both economic and social in its force in reversing many of the gains that women have made in Africa and worldwide. Of course, Charlotte Maxeke struggled in a time that was rather different from the period in which we live today, a period in which women do have many more opportunities and legal rights than were enjoyed by women such as Maxeke. But it is important to make reference to the fact that we extol her because of the many attributes that shaped her heroic character. And I think when we refer to these attributes, these must be taken as signposts for young women of areas in which we would like to see women making a significant contribution and young women aspiring to do well in. We celebrate her for her attributes as an artist and performer. She served as a member of the African Jubilee Choir, performed both nationally in South Africa and on international platforms, including across Europe and the Americas. I'm told that during her tour of Europe, she performed solo for Queen Victoria. Imagine an African woman achieving that. She was an internationalist. She formed international links. She traveled across the world. She had friendships throughout the world. And she consistently shared information and used art and her intellect to build solid collaborations, solid partnerships. She advanced cooperation and understanding between the people of South Africa and friends that she made during her travels and studies abroad. For example, she built a very solid partnership with W.E.B. Du Bois, a foremost African-American intellectual, who she met at Wilberforce University as one of her lecturers. And she continued to correspond with him to inform him about the conditions of Africans in South Africa. So she was in communication in person, but also in communication through correspondence. And she did one of the things we often bewail as a matter we do not address sufficiently. She wrote. And this is something we as women must become better at, writing our story and sharing it internationally. She was an intellectual and academic achiever, the first woman to acquire a Bachelor of Science degree in 1901, the beginning of the 20th century, from a prestigious institution, Wilberforce University in Ohio in the United States. Imagine such an achievement. This is why we call on young women to pursue education and not just to stop with an initial degree, to proceed to honors, to proceed to masters, to proceed to acquire a PhD, so that they become the foremost researchers and innovators in the African continent and worldwide. She was a torchbearer in women's leadership, She was the only woman, as we know, in the room at the founding meeting of the South African National Native Congress, which is now the African National Congress as we know it today. She was there in that Methodist church in Vryhoek in Bloemfontein on the 8th of January 1912, the only woman present. It was through a motivation by Alfred Bettini Xuma that she was given observer status at that meeting. She sat there without a murmur as it was debated by men whether she should actually be in the meeting. The most amusing thing is the men who were debating her were far less accomplished than she was, yet she sat quietly listening to this debate until they agreed that indeed it was advantageous to continue to have her presence in the meeting. She was an advocate for women's rights. We often speak of the fact that we as women, we advance and then we forget to help others to advance. She is known to have been very strong on saying there must be respect for women's rights. She worked under very difficult circumstances, but served as a leader in the face of severe social engineering, severe discrimination against women. She transcended all barriers, intellectual, cultural, religious. She was a visionary. She realized that you cannot work on such a major effort alone. And therefore in 1918, she co-founded the Bantu Women's League and became its first president. This league fought against past laws, but also inculcated a great deal of active public opinion on another equally disgraceful practice of medical inspection of black women before they could enter domestic service. So we would say, in terms of today's offenses against women, that she was an activist for the sexual reproductive health and rights of health for women. She was a teacher. She taught at primary and secondary school levels. She co-founded the Wilberforce Institute in Everton, named to mirror her university experience, and that institute in Everton in the Vaal continues to exist even today. She was a social worker, a multifaceted woman. She worked as a social worker and native welfare officer, and this distinguished her abilities to serve others. She always took the initiative to serve her people, not expecting to be paid, not expecting to become rich from service to the nation. Her opinions were often sought by leaders in society, and in many cases when she was taken to court for her strong opinions, she succeeded in getting suspended sentences when lawyers often failed to get other clients to have similar charges removed. She was an agent for economic empowerment. She understood that women had to have economic freedom in order to enjoy gender equality. She set up an employment agency for Africans in Johannesburg. She also assisted young people who were in conflict with the law. In that, she was a human rights activist. She helped young people to avoid long sentences in jail. She helped them to be defended as they faced unfair charges by an oppressive state. And she understood what young people needed in order to be rehabilitated and to have a positive socioeconomic experience in life. She's also known as a first for being a first black woman doing many, many things. She understood that in order for women to have the courage to seek to do what must be done to remove discrimination, there had to be a meaningful role model that women would mirror. So she rallied other women to amplify their voice in the struggle for gender equality. So, given these wonderful characteristics and attributes, it was important that we do recognize her status, that we tell her story, but that we use this to impart knowledge and to inspire generations of women who we hope will embody her values in a meaningful way. So what we are hoping for through the initiative we launched today is that we will create hundreds, thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands more Charlotte Maxeke's. It may be more women with science degrees, it might be more women as entrepreneurs, it might be more women as educators, but in all we will be multiplying Charlotte Maxeke and her various identities. In paying tribute to her work, our department has developed an organic legacy initiative that we believe is an embodiment of her values and her leadership qualities. We anchor the initiative on our foreign policy, which is primarily Pan-Africanist in form and internationalist in content. This agenda is the Charlotte Maxeke African Women Economic Justice and Rights Initiative. It's our contribution to the global acceleration agenda for the empowerment of women and girls. I say accelerated because do remember that Generation Equality Forum is a statement that says we've been struggling long enough. The time has arrived to achieve. No more long campaigns. Now we want change. We want generation equality now. So remember, what we're doing is accelerating our agenda to empower women and achieve equality. Through this initiative, we've come full circle in our efforts on the full emancipation of women and girls. We believe that this legacy initiative gives expression to our diplomacy of Ubuntu. It aims to strengthen our international solidarity work. We know the practical meaning of international solidarity in that we are a major beneficiary of the world working with us to fight the struggle against apartheid. So we know, working with Mexico, working with France, working with Switzerland, we can make gains in this gender agenda. We have focused on economic rights because we are aware that we have made gains in the civil and political rights domain. It is the economic rights of women and girls that still continue to be neglected. And so we have chosen to focus on economic justice and rights. Just last month, our President Ramaphosa joined other heads of state and organizations at the Paris Forum, which was arranged by President Macron. And in that meeting, they endorsed the outcome of the multi-stakeholder process, the Global Acceleration Plan for the Empowerment of Women and Girls across the globe. Our President outlined South Africa's commitments for the next 5 years, including the Charlotte Maxeke initiative that we launched today. One of the challenges that we are confronted by is the need for us to always be far more measured at ensuring we do not only announce initiatives, but that we place resources beside them to ensure their achievement. Our leaders speaking in France made bold announcements. We now want to see the resources linked to those announcements so that we can have practical outcomes, visible and identified and confirmed by women researchers. We are concerned, as always, that at times we make announcement, no resources follow, and we don't achieve the objectives that all of us have attached our names to. We would like, through this initiative, to mobilize the global community to support women's leadership across all the action coalitions, particularly economic justice and rights, through education, training and mentorship for women and youth, as well as creating opportunities in economic participation, networking, diplomacy, and trade. I'm sure I don't have to remind our audience today of what we saw as we were hit in 2020 by the COVID-19 pandemic. Countries had to introduce lockdowns. Our economies came to a standstill. When the lockdowns and restrictions were lifted, because of the economic impact, many governments had to consider, what do we do given the impact of the lockdown on businesses, countrywide, worldwide. Various support measures were put in place and businesses were assisted to begin the process of recovery. There was a significant group missing from the attention of those providing business recovery support. These were the millions of African and other women in developing countries who rely on the micro and informal sector for their daily livelihood. Very, very inadequate resources, or in fact, for many, none, were directed at that category of women. So in giving effect to our economic justice initiative, we are going to look particularly at those women who are on the margins, those women who provide significant support to families and communities and who don't enjoy access to government grants, to significant training support, to access to products, to tax-free benefits. They are the women who need our assistance. They are the women who must enjoy economic rights. They are the women who need justice today. We will be creating opportunities for economic participation, for networking, for enhanced diplomacy, and for increased trade. We will launch collaborative projects with targeted support for women and girls to ensure that they have increased opportunities in decision-making across political and economic spheres. I'm hoping France, Mexico, Switzerland, and other countries will assist us in creating the pool of funding that will provide this targeted support. We would like all our friends and partners to join hands with us and walk with us as we roll out this project. We see ourselves talking to women in Accra, talking to women in Sao Paulo, talking to women on the street of Gaborone, those informal businesswomen, and saying to them, here is a grant to make your business better and bigger, to help your family thrive. Our initiative has 6 flagship programs that we hope we will implement in an incremental fashion in the next 3 to 5 years. Firstly, we have the Africa Future Leadership Development Program, which we hope will inculcate the values of Pan-Africanism, integrity, and selflessness through mentorship and training opportunities for youth on international policy and diplomacy work. We will target young people in this program from all over the African continent, and we hope in future from the entire globe. The second is the African Women's Leadership Award, which will recognize and honor exceptional African women leaders whose achievements and mentorship have advanced Africa's development in a range of sectors in society. We will also host a minister's breakfast with women ambassadors on gender equality initiatives and learn from them what their countries do in order to advance the gender agenda. So we will create a platform for women diplomats to share perspectives and explore opportunities to promote the empowerment of women and girls in Africa. The fourth will be the African Women's Leadership Training Program on Economic Justice and Rights. This will enable African women leaders opportunities to apply leading-edge knowledge, experience, and insight on economic justice and rights. We'll create a networking platform for African women leaders to share best practice and practical lessons from their actual lived experiences. We also plan to host the Women's Trade Fair, which will showcase African women's products and services to markets on the continent and globally. We also hope to raise awareness about the opportunities provided through policy initiatives that encourage intra-African trade, such as the African Continental Free Trade Area. Then last, our sixth program, the Fellowship for African Women in Diplomacy. To honor this great teacher, we will seek partnerships for an annual fellowship program targeting African women in diplomacy. The program will provide degree and non-degree awarding opportunities to the next generation of African women in diplomacy. This is done in an effort to impart and mold a female public servant that will be inspired by the values of Charlotte Maxeke, such as ethical leadership, empathy, and excellence. If we exhibit just these three attributes in the work and lives that we lead, our continent will be an excellent place. Our department, through the office of our Chief Operations Officer, has been engaged in a consultative process with many of our friends and partners that we would like to take this initiative forward with in concrete terms. But we also openly invite anyone who is interested, who believes they have an opportunity to contribute to the realization of our legacy initiative, to join us in these programs that will advance the economic justice and rights of women and girls in Africa. So I'm hopeful that our various embassies will make a contribution to the pool of funds that we will initiate as DIRCO and join us in advancing this set of initiatives. Let me conclude by just reiterating wonderful words from the patron of this initiative when she said, and I quote, "This work is not for yourselves. Kill that spirit of self. Do not live above your people, but live with them. If you can rise, bring someone with you." I thank all of you for participating, and I look forward to working with you on this economic rights and justice agenda. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you once more for reintroducing Charlotte Maxeke to all of us and